There's a number out there so massive, it's almost meaningless. It's at the center of a huge paradox in our financial system, a kind of secret that everybody in charge knows, but nobody really wants to admit out loud. So let's break it down. And that's maybe the weirdest part of all of this. I mean, despite the unbelievable scale of the situation we're about to get into, the markets just open every morning. Banks keep lending, governments keep borrowing, everyone is acting like everything is totally fine. So here's the number, $300 trillion. That is roughly the grand total of all global debts. But let's be real, what does a number that big actually mean? Can you even picture it? To try and put that into perspective, that number is more than 3 times the size of the entire world's economic output. Think about that for a second. If every single country on Earth just stopped all their spending, no healthcare, no building roads, nothing, and used every single dollar to pay down debt, it still wouldn't be enough. It could never be paid back. This right here, this is the question that really defines the modern economy. And the answer starts with a really simple but kind of shocking truth. The system was never, ever designed for the debt to be paid off in the first place. And this is our first big clue. See, unlike the kind of debt you and I have, the global financial system wasn't built on the idea of repayment. It was built to do something else entirely. It was built to roll. Just think about your mortgage or your credit card bill. You have to pay it back, right? There's a final due date. But at the global level, that just doesn't exist. Instead, when old debt comes due, it's simply paid off by issuing new debt. The main amount, the principal, it just gets rolled forward, pretty much endlessly. This right here perfectly sums it up. For governments and these huge institutions, it's just a perpetual cycle. The goal isn't to get rid of the debt, it's to constantly manage it by refinancing, forever. Now, this isn't happening just because governments are being irresponsible. It's happening because the system actually requires it to happen. Government bonds are basically the bedrock of the entire financial world. Pension funds need them for safety, banks use them as collateral, and whole markets need them just to work properly. So in that context, issuing debt isn't some mistake, it's infrastructure. Okay, but this system, this whole thing designed to just roll debt over forever, it runs headfirst into a huge problem. It's a mathematical conflict that you just can't ignore. The problem is actually pretty simple. Debt compounds, so it grows exponentially, like a snowball rolling downhill. Economies, on the other hand, they tend to grow much more slowly, more linearly. And as this chart shows, over time, that gap between the two just becomes this massive, unbridgeable chasm. And that's the crucial point here. It really doesn't matter who is in office or what policies they try to enact. When your debt is growing way faster than the economy that's supposed to support it, repayment stops being a political choice. It just becomes a mathematical impossibility. So, if the math just doesn't work, why hasn't everything already collapsed? Well, it's because the system has this unwritten, built-in strategy for dealing with this impossible situation. It's like an architecture that's designed to stretch time itself. Now, in theory, there are 3 textbook ways you can get out of a huge debt trap like this. First, you can default, which means you just refuse to pay. Bad idea. That completely destroys trust and freezes up your economy. Second, you can inflate your currency, which kind of melts away the value of the debt, but it also wipes out everybody's savings. Or third, you can try to grow your economy fast enough to outrun the debt, which, as you can imagine, is incredibly rare. But in the real world, the world has pretty much chosen a fourth option: delay. The strategy is simple, really. Just kick the can down the road. Manage the problem for today, and push all the real consequences into the future. And this isn't just passive denial, it's a very active management technique. Central banks keep interest rates artificially low. They allow a little bit of inflation to slowly eat away at the real value of the debt. Every tool they have is used for one single purpose: to buy more time. So this entire structure, this whole architecture of delay, this incredibly fragile system, it's all built on something that isn't physical. It's not gold, it's not cash, it's something much, much more delicate. The entire system works for one reason and one reason only: collective belief. As long as all the lenders, we're talking investors, banks, pension funds, as long as they believe they'll get paid back, the system keeps functioning and the debt is considered safe. But that confidence is so fragile. The very moment that belief cracks, even just a little bit, the whole game changes. Suddenly, interest rates spike because lending is seen as riskier. Refinancing gets expensive, then it gets difficult, and then, for some, it becomes impossible. And that right there is the trigger for nearly every single financial crisis. The debt was always there. It was always mathematically impossible. The crisis doesn't begin when the numbers change. It begins when the psychology shifts. The moment that belief disappears, the whole illusion just shatters. So where does this all end? What's the end game? If everybody knows the debt can't possibly be repaid and the whole system is built on this fragile confidence, are we just headed for some spectacular world-ending collapse? Well, the source material here suggests something a lot quieter and maybe a little more insidious. The endgame probably isn't going to be some sudden Mad Max-style collapse. The system is actually designed to avoid that at all costs. The real consequence is something else entirely. Yeah, the real outcome is drift, just a slow, grinding erosion of our economic and political norms. It's a quiet shift in how the world works, happening so gradually that most people probably won't even notice it's happening. So what does this drift actually look like? Well, power slowly shifts from elected governments over to their creditors. Major decisions start to become less about what voters want and more about what's going to keep the bond markets happy. And the result of that? You get more and more complex financial engineering just to keep the game going, and the gap between those who own assets and those who don't just gets wider and wider. And that really brings us right back to where we started. This system works because everyone agrees to pretend that the debt will, someday, somehow, be paid. The real question isn't if it will be paid. The real question is, how long can that pretense last?